Hi everybody. So this video is my mid-year freakout tag for my Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR. For the record, I have been doing this from Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR since September 2024. And my thoughts on the books that I read from November from last fall are not included in this mid-year freakout tag because it starts with January. So, well, some of them may be included. We'll see. All right. First category is favorite nonfiction. Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, 25th Anniversary Edition. I recently read this book. It is part of the Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul series. Chicken Soup for the Soul series, they released the 25th anniversary of Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul in 2021. So this compilation has stories from the original Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul book that I read when I was in middle school. And it also adds new stories for the current day. I just love it. It's hard to be subjective with rating nonfiction books such as Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul or memoirs such as Talking as Fast as I Can, The Third Gilmore Girl, or Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. But for Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, I gave it 5 stars. The next nonfiction book I want to talk about is Have I Told You This Already? This is Lauren Graham's second memoir. It's more of an essay collection, and I reviewed it more thoroughly in my December and January wrap-up video that I will post in the description. The next book I wanted to mention is Just Kids by Patti Smith. I read this in March. I gave it 4 stars. It is by a musician from the 1970s. Her name is Patti Smith. It talks about her music career and her friendship with her fellow musician, Roger Mapplethorpe. I think that was his name. So on the TBR list for Friends characters that I found on Instagram, this book was paired up with Lane's character, and I think it perfectly would be a book that Lane would read. The next book that I wanted to talk about in best nonfiction is Talking as Fast as I Can. This is Lauren Graham's memoir that focuses on Gilmore Girls, parenthood, Gilmore Girls A Year in a Life, and everything that was in between that. I loved this memoir. I am not really sure how Have I Told You This Already really works as a memoir. I see her second memoir as more of an essay collection about reflections of stuff that happened in her life, not so much a memoir. But with Talking as Fast as I Can, as a theater person, the part I enjoyed the most about Lauren Graham's memoir was when she talked about her favorite costumes that she wore in each season of Gilmore Girls. And do I picture myself all the time wearing these costumes? Yes. I want to go to TJ Maxx and see if they actually sell some of these outfits, because I would totally wear them. Not to mention, Lauren Graham is very pretty. There is a picture of her in this memoir of her and Matthew Perry from Birds of America. The same picture is in Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, or maybe I'm confusing which book this picture's in. But I wish that she had mentioned in her book about Birds of America. Because one question I have about that movie is where they came up with the title of the film, because I went into the movie. Me and Kathleen watched this movie in February. And we went into the movie thinking it was going to be a movie about nature, but no, it's a movie about a kind of screwed up family. The oldest sibling in this movie is played by Matthew Perry. He is a college professor, much like David Schwimmer is in Friends, much like Ross is. He teaches, I think, biology. And his younger siblings are both they both have mental health issues, and this shouldn't be funny, but his brother is arrested for going up to little kids on the street and like pretending he's a priest and blessing them, and the parents think that he's like trying to sexually assault them. So he's basically running from the law. And when Maury and Betty is Lauren Graham's character in this film, go to their house, his ex-wife, or I guess it's his ex-wife or something. It's his wife or his ex-wife. I can't remember. But his ex-wife comes to Maury and Betty's house to get the brothers to say, the cops are looking for you, you're under arrest. So we couldn't figure out why this movie was titled Birds of America. If you have seen this movie, or if you are Lauren Graham and you are watching this video, which I doubt she will, but if she does, please check your Instagram messages, because I actually messaged you 3 weeks ago or something asking you if you had any ideas as to why this movie was called Birds of America. So check your messages. I honestly don't think these celebrities look at their Instagram messages, though. The last memoir and favorite nonfiction is The Third Gilmore Girl, and as I have said in previous videos, what I like the best about Kelly Bishop's memoir is the fact that she talks about how she was in Chorus Line on Broadway in the 1980s as Sheila. Sheila is one of the main characters in the At the Ballet song. And it's heartbreaking because she connected at the ballet to her real life relationship with her dad, and that made me cry. Favorite film adaptation of a book that stars a Friends or Gilmore Girls actor? Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Alexis Bledel plays Lena. And she comes from a big family who is Greek, and I just love the scenes that are set in Greece. It makes me want to go there, much like the cinematography in the movie Mamma Mia. Favorite couples. Deb and Charlie from The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. Gus and January from Beach Read by Emily Henry. Rhodes and Anson from Fragile Sanctuary by Catherine Cowles. Favorite author, debut or new to you? Brooke Shields. Brooke Shields never gets old. Brooke Shields came out with a memoir in January. I listened to it on audio. She narrates the audiobook. I loved learning about her life. She is 10 years older than me. So while I'm not planning on having any kids myself, I feel like in general she has a lot of good advice about how to be confident. And stuff like that, and I can definitely apply that to my own life, so I appreciate her for that. Catherine Cowles, Claire Leslie Hall, who is the author of Broken Country, which was the Reese's Book Club pick for March, which I gave 5 stars to. Allegra Goodman, who is the author of Isola, The February pick for Reese's Book Club, which I gave 4.5 stars to, and Linda Holmes, the author of Evie Drake Starts Over, which I gave 4.5 stars to. Best audiobook. Autobiography of Red by Anne Carson. Brooke Shields is Not Afraid to Get Old by Brooke Shields. Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. Friends, Lovers, and a Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry. Isola by Allegra Goodman. And One Italian Summer by Rebecca Searle, which is narrated by Lauren Graham. Biggest disappointment for new releases. Great Big Beautiful Life. I don't want to take too much time talking about Great Big Beautiful Life because I talk about it in my tier ranking Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez video, which I will tag in the description so you can get my opinion. Favorite childhood reread. So I put together a sub TBR where I read books that came out each year during when Friends and Gilmore Girls was on. These two books that I'm going to talk about were from 1994 and 1996. The first book is called You Can't Eat Your Chicken Pox, Amber Brown by Paula Danziger. This book series is about a girl who is in 3rd to 4th grade. She's in 3rd grade at the beginning of the series, ending like in the middle of 4th grade by the end. And it's about how she deals with her parents' divorce. And in You Can't Eat Your Chicken Pox, Amber Brown, she goes to London, England, to visit her dad, who has a job out there. And while she is there, she gets the chicken pox. And this book came out in 1996. And it reminded me of the episode where Ross is getting married to Emily because it's set in London. The next childhood favorite that I reread that I enjoyed is called Walk to Moons by Sharon Creech. This is about a girl named Sid who goes on an adventure to find her missing mother with her grandparents. She's Native American, and her friend Phoebe is also on a quest to find her mother who has disappeared on her. I read this book when I was 10 years old, and I remember really liking it. I liked it because I liked the adventure aspect of both the main character, Sid, and her friend Phoebe going on a quest to find their missing mothers. Kind of reminds me of Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng. Because in that book, there is a 12-year-old boy. His name is Daniel. And he also goes on a quest to find his missing mother, who abandoned him and his father. And of course, I don't know if this author, Sharon Creech, we're back to talking about not Walk to Moons, was a fan of Friends. But my assumption is that she must have been if she named her character Phoebe. That's just my guess. Another book that I read that is on my TBR for books that were published during the time when Friends and Gilmore Girls were on is Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. I read this last year for my books I read this last fall during my back to school TBR because it's about a kid starting a girl who is homeschooled adjusting to being in private school, and she's quirky like Phoebe. She plays the ukulele, and I also wonder if Jerry Spinelli was a Friends fan too, just because his character Stargirl reminded me so much of Phoebe. Completely. Least favorite childhood reread that I read for this TBR was Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. So I originally read this book when I was 10. I reread it and watched the movie when I was preparing for my PTA play audition in 2022. And when I reread it, I cannot recall the reason why I liked this book as a child. Probably because it was set in New Hampshire, the state where I went to middle school and high school. I grew up in Massachusetts. Probably like for the atmosphere and stuff, but like me and Kathleen recently watched the movie and we are going to be reviewing it. So this video will be out a little bit after Kathleen and I post the video where we reviewed Tuck Everlasting. So I don't want to get too far into reviewing that book because we're going to be talking about it in that video. This video is going to be out on June 10th. The video me and Kathleen make are going to be out on June 8th. So stay tuned. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. To my knowledge, there are no new releases coming out that are directly related to the Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR. In general, the two new releases I am anticipating reading for the second half of the year are Dream on Ramona Riley, which is Ashley Herring Blake's new book that just came out 2 weeks ago, and Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher, which is coming out on August 19th. And as far as books that I am anticipating reading that are on this TBR for the second half of the year, I'm looking forward to reading Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton. I'm looking forward to finishing the Sparrow Fall series by Catherine Cowles because I have really enjoyed the first two books, Fragile Sanctuary and Delicate Escape. I'm looking forward to reading Big Gay Wedding and Luda, which are new acquisitions that I got this week at Print Bookstore. And Soko's Smile, which is a short story collection that was recommended to us, me and Kathleen, by Taylor at Diaries of Creativity. She also recommended Intermezzo, but it's not like I haven't heard about Intermezzo from other booktubers that I follow. Intermezzo has gotten mixed reviews from various booktubers that I follow. I gave it 2.5 stars because it was sad. I liked the characters. I like Sally Rooney's writing, except for the fact that she doesn't use quotation marks around her dialogue. Movie that made you cry. Marley and Me and 17 Again. Marley and Me, spoiler alert. So for those of you who have not seen Marley and Me, I hate to spoil the ending. So this is a movie about a couple who adopt a dog. The couple, John and Jenny Grogan. Ugh. I'm tripping over these names, I don't know why, are played by Jennifer Aniston, who played Rachel Green on Friends, and Owen Wilson from Wedding Crashers. So this book is basically how this young couple adopts a dog, and then they start a family, and it's about how the family grows up with the dog. And this makes me remember all of the fun times I had with my dog, Bianca, who died at age 15 in 2015. And at the end of the movie, sorry for the spoiler for those of you who haven't seen it, but if you are somebody who has had a pet and lost a pet, whether it was recently or whether it was 5 or 10 years ago, you will definitely relate to how Jennifer Aniston's character is at the end of this movie, because she is sobbing in her driveway, saying goodbye to her dog. And it is one of my favorite movies with Jennifer Aniston, besides the murder mystery movies. And 17 again focuses on a man named Michael O'Donnell, who is played by Matthew Perry, and he is going through a divorce, and he has a hard time connecting with his kids, Alex and Maggie. Maggie is played by the recently departed Michelle Trachtenberg, who died in March from liver failure. So I recently rewatched 17 again, and Kathleen and I are going to be watching it again on June 8th to review it for the radio show we're doing in August. And so basically what happens in this movie is like it's a Wonderful Life, but instead of seeing what life would be like if you were never born, Mike O'Donnell, who is played by Matthew Perry, is transported into the body of his 17-year-old self, who is played by Zac Efron from High School Musical and The Greatest Showman. And basically he uses this opportunity to repair his relationship with his wife and his kids, and it's a very beautiful film about second chances, and I highly recommend it. It is my third favorite Matthew Perry movie after Fools Rush In and The Ron Clark Story, and following that is The Whole Nine Yards. Movie that made you laugh, starring a Friends or Gilmore Girls actor. What I picked for this superlative is Along Came Polly. So this movie came out in, I believe, 2001 or 2002. It stars Jennifer Aniston and Ben Stiller from Meet the Parents. And it's about a guy who is cheated on because his wife cheats on her. His wife cheats on him on his honeymoon with the guy who runs the lobster boating tour, who is played by Hank Azaria, the voice of The Simpsons, and David the Scientist Guy on Friends. So, obviously, Ben Stiller's character, Ruben, is heartbroken by the fact that he was cheated on. So he reconnects with a school friend, a classmate he was in middle school with. Her name is Polly Prince, and I love the relationship dynamic between Ben Stiller and Jennifer Aniston. My favorite scene in this movie is the scene where they are taking the salsa dancing classes, because it looks so much fun and the choreography was amazing. I'm pretty sure if I'm not mistaken, that the choreography in that movie was by Kenny Ortega from High School Musical and Gilmore Girls. Book with a character. Oh, sorry. Newest fictional crush is Dean from Evie Drake Starts Over. So, obviously, the reason why I picked this character is because he's named Dean. Like Dean Forrester, Rory's first boyfriend in Gilmore Girls. So, this book is about a woman who loses her husband and she moves into the apartment next to her best friend's house, and her roommate is this baseball player who is on injured reserves because he sprained his shoulder and needs to go to physical therapy. The baseball player's name is Dean. He's a lot nicer than Dean Forrester is, because Dean Forrester is probably my least of Rory's boyfriends. He's very well acted by Jared P. I cannot pronounce his last name, so I'm just calling him Jared P. Dean in this book is much more likable than his character, than Dean on Gilmore Girls. And, I gave Evie Drake Starts Over 4.5 stars. Because A, obviously the male love interest name is Dean, and B, is set in Maine. The next newest fictional crush is Jacob from the Matzo Ball. I have read all of Jean Meltzer's books. She is an author who writes a lot of stories about couples who are Jewish, because she is Jewish. And I really liked so in The Matzo Ball, which is a Hanukkah book that came out a couple of years ago, I believe in 2022 or 2023, we have Rachel and Jacob. And I loved the chemistry between Rachel and Jacob. Their relationship is very sweet. And the thing I like best about Jean Meltzer's books is that they teach you all about the Jewish holidays. Kissing Kosher and the Matzo Ball are set during Hanukkah. And then Mr. Perfect on Paper, which I just finished reading a couple of weeks ago, starts off in October during Rosh Hashanah and then moves into December to Hanukkah. So I really like learning about the Jewish faith through these books, because I grew up Catholic, but I have friends I know that are Jewish, and I think it's very educational for me to read these books and read about how these holidays are celebrated. And she also has great disability representation in her books. In Kissing Kosher, the 2024 Christmas release, the main character has chronic illness. In Mr. Perfect on Paper, the lead character has anxiety. And then that's it for disability representation. I don't remember I don't remember if Rachel in the Matzo Ball or the character in Magical Meet Cute has a disability, but I highly recommend Jean Meltzer if you are looking for books with good Jewish representation and good representation about disabilities. All right, we're done. Almost done. Book with a character that best fits the character from the show. Okay, let me just run down First book, The Devil Wears Prada. The main character in this book is by Lauren Weinsberger. The movie stars Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep and is coming in with a sequel next year, which I cannot wait for. So Andy represents Rachel's character. Next character is Gilda from Everybody in This Room Will One Day Be Dead by Emily R. Austin. This author also wrote Interesting Facts About Space and Gay Girl Prayers, which is a poetry collection, and We Could Be Rats. My ratings for her books are all over the place. Interesting Facts About Space got 4.5 stars. Everyone in This Room Will One Day Be Dead got 4 stars. Gay Girl Prayers got 4.5 stars. And We Could Be Rats got 2.5 stars. This character, Gilda, from Everyone in This Room Will One Day Be Dead, reminds me of Lane because of her deadpan humor. The next character we have is Tori from Solitaire by Alice Oseman, the same author as I Was Made for This and the Heartstopper series. Oops. And this character represents Paris, and she is the sister of Nick from Heartstopper. The next character is Rachel from Heartburn by Nora Ephron. And this character represents Monica because she is a food critic. The next character is Izzy from The Wake Up Call. The Wake Up Call is a holiday book that is set at an inn that is very reminiscent of Independence Inn. I think Beth O'Leary must be a fan of Gilmore Girls because, as I was saying, the hotel reminds me of the Independence Inn. Izzy reminds me of Lorelai. And Luke, who I think is ironic that his name is Luke, because he reminds me of Michelle, but also of Luke because Michelle and Luke are equally grumpy. The next character is Lucas from The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. So, this book is the sequel to The Spanish Love Deception, which I hated. I loved The American Roommate Experiment, though. It was so fantastic. My former hairdresser, she just moved away recently, Andrea, she recommended this book to me because she said that Lucas reminded her of Joey, and I completely agree with her. Joey is sweet. He's the friend that will do anything for you. Like, he is the number one. He is so sweet, just like Joey is. I couldn't remember the main character's name in Beartown. Please leave it in the description, but he reminds me of Luke. And then we have Margaret from Us in Ruins. I read Us in Ruins in March. It is a historical fiction romance that is set in Pompeii, Italy. And when I reviewed that book, I showed you guys the cover. Please go back and watch that video. And once you do, weigh down in the comments below on if you think that that character reminds you of Rory from the later seasons of Gilmore Girls when she is in college and she has curly hair. The last category I have that I skipped over by accident is most insightful book into another culture or religion. I talked about the Matzo Ball already when I talked about Fictional Crush. The other two books I wanted to mention in this category are Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, which is a memoir that is about Frank McCourt's life growing up in Ireland. And we also watched the movie. The movie has amazing cinematography of Ireland. And Kathleen and Matt and I watched the movie together during St. Patrick's Day. And that will be reviewed in our video that is coming out on April 8th. So you will see that video on Kathleen's channel before you see this one. So, the last book I wanted to mention is I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. This memoir is a book about a girl who was in Palestine during the war that was in the early 2010s, and she was the one who stood up for education for people in her country, and I really loved it. She is a role model for us all, especially in these times where the Department of Education is under threat by Donald Trump. This book is very important for you to read because it talks about standing up for what you believe in and standing up for a good education, which is what I'm hoping people are continue to do. I'm hoping you're continue to exercise your rights to speak up against what Donald Trump is doing and how he's taking our rights away. So thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. Bye.